The emergency lights bathed the council chamber in deep red as Ambassador Kethvorin rushed through the massive doors, his forelegs carrying him faster than dignity would normally allow all around him. Representatives from 47 species were shouting, crying, or sitting in stunned silence as holographic displays showed the advancing doom. Varak's hegemony had returned at Kethvorin found his seat among the silently collective delegation and immediately pulled up his personal display, his three eyes scanning the data with growing horror. The numbers were impossible to believe. Yet the sensors did not lie. 40,000 warships, each one a biomechanical nightmare of teeth and armor, were moving through the border systems like a wave of hungry predators. Order! High Arbiter Yelm slammed her ceremonial staff against the metal floor, the sound echoing through the vast chamber like thunder. We will have order in this chamber. She was ancient, even by the long-lived standards of the Mithrani people, and her silver scales had faded to pale white over her 600 years of life, but her voice still carried the weight of authority that had maintained galactic peace for 3 centuries. Shouting died down to worried murmurs as delegates turned their attention to the central platform where Yelm stood. We have all seen the transmissions, she said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. The Varak's Archon has delivered his terms, and I will now share them with those who have not yet received the full message. She pressed a control on her staff, and a massive hologram appeared above the chamber, showing a creature that made even the bravest delegates shudder. Archon Dalvex was enormous, his insectoid body covered in black armor that seemed to grow from his very flesh. His compound eyes reflected no light, appearing as endless pools of darkness, and when he spoke, his mandibles clicked together in a rhythm that sounded like bones breaking. Creatures of the Galaxy Council. The recording began. Your time of weakness has lasted long enough, and now the Varak's hegemony rises to claim what should have always been ours. You will surrender the 8 systems of the Periphery Corridor within 10 standard rotations, and you will disband your pathetic defense fleet. In exchange, we will allow you to continue existing as servants to our empire. Refuse, and we will remind the galaxy why our ancestors were once called the Devourers of Worlds. You have 10 rotations, and not one moment more. The hologram faded, and the chamber erupted into chaos once again. Kethvorin watched as species that had been rivals for centuries now turned to each other with fear in their eyes, seeking comfort from old enemies. In the face of new Terra, Palori delegate stood up from his seat, his young face showing the naive hope that only the inexperienced could maintain in moments like this. High Arbiter, he called out, his voice cracking slightly. What about our defense fleet? Can we not fight them? Yelm's expression softened with something that might have been pity. Our combined fleet numbers 11,000 vessels, she answered. The Varaks have nearly 4 times that number, and their bioships are designed for war in ways our vessels cannot match. Then we must find allies. The young Palori continued, desperation creeping into his voice. There must be someone who can help us. What about the Terrans? They defeated the silence that fell over the chamber was so complete that Kethvorin could hear his own heartbeat. Every single delegate had frozen in place, their various forms of eyes all fixed on the young Palori with expressions ranging from horror to fury. High Arbiter Yelm's staff came down so hard that cracks appeared in the metal floor beneath it. That discussion is forbidden, she declared, her voice sharp as broken glass. Security, please escort the delegate from the Palori Union out of this chamber immediately. 2 armored guards appeared and gently but firmly took the confused young delegate by his arms, leading him toward the exit. But I do not understand, he protested as they pulled him away. Why can we not ask for their help? What is wrong with mentioning Terra? The door sealed shut behind him. Cutting off his questions, Kethvorin noticed that several of the older delegates had closed their eyes. As if the mere mention of that word had caused them physical pain, he turned to his colleague, Elder Miraset of the Alorian Sovereignty, who sat trembling in her seat. What just happened? He whispered, keeping his voice low so others would not hear. Why is everyone so afraid of discussing the Terrans? Are they not just another species from the outer regions? Miraset grabbed his arm with her delicate fingers, a grip surprisingly strong for someone of her small size. Never say that name again, she hissed, her large eyes wide with genuine terror. Never even think about them if you can help it. But why? Kethvorin pressed, his curiosity overcoming his caution. Surely if they are powerful enough to frighten the Council this much, they could help us against the Varaks. Miraset leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely a breath. 200 years ago, the Kreth Dominion tried to enslave their world, she whispered. The Kreth had 1,000 warships and millions of soldiers. What happened to them? Kethvorin asked. Miraset's face went pale beneath her fur. Nothing happened to them, she answered. Because they no longer exist. Not a single Kreth survives anywhere in the galaxy. Not on any world, not on any station, not even in prison or exile. The human did not defeat the Kreth Dominion. They erased it from existence in 6 weeks. And then they went back to their own space and acted like nothing had happened. Kethvorin felt his blood run cold as the implications became clear. And that is why we cannot ask for their help, he said slowly, understanding dawning in his mind. Because if we involve them, they will not just defeat the Varaks. They will destroy everything, Miraset confirmed. Every Varak's world, every Varak's ship, every Varak's child. The humans do not fight wars. Ambassador, they end species. And once they start, nothing in this galaxy can make them stop. Above them, High Arbiter Yeln was calling for another vote, trying to maintain order in a chamber full of terrified beings. But Kethvorin was no longer listening. He was thinking about a species so dangerous that the entire galaxy had agreed to pretend they did not exist, and he was wondering what would happen if the Varaks made the mistake of drawing their attention. The emergency lights continued to pulse their warning red. But Kethvorin now understood that there was something far more frightening than the Varaks. A Gemini waiting in the darkness between the stars, and its name was Terra. The archive chambers beneath Accord Prime had not been opened in decades, and the air inside tasted like dust and forgotten secrets. Elder Miraset moved through the darkness with only a small light to guide her way, her heart pounding with fear that what she was about to do accessing these files was forbidden, punishable by exile from the Council forever. But the Varak's fleet was 3 days away from the core systems, and desperation had overcome her respect for the Losh, found the terminal she was looking for. Hidden behind shelves of ancient data crystals that contained the history of 1,000 civilizations, her fingers trembled as she entered her override codes. Codes she had stolen from High Arbiter Yeln's personal files during the chaos of the emergency session. The screen flickered to life and displayed a simple warning in bright red letters. Terra. Exclusion protocols. Level Omega classification. Access restricted to High Council members only. Miraset took a deep breath and pressed her palm against the scanner. For a terrible moment, nothing happened, and she was certain that alarms would start screaming and guards would come to arrest her. But then the screen changed and files began to appear. Hundreds of them, each one marked with dates and classification levels that made her stomach turn with anxiety. She selected the oldest file, dated 207 years in the past, and a holographic recording began to play. The image showed a beautiful blue and green world spinning slowly in space. White clouds swirling across its surface like cream stirred into coffee. This is Earth, a narrator's voice explained. Homeworld of the species known as humans. Discovered by Kreth Dominion scouts in the year 7845 of the galactic calendar. the image changed to show the Kreth. Massive reptilian creatures with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. The Kreth assessed the humans as primitive, confined to a single star system, possessing only basic space travel technology. The Dominion Command classified them as suitable for labor extraction and ordered a standard subjugation fleet to secure the planet. Miracet watched as the recording showed Kreth warships entering the human solar system, their weapons powering up as they approached the blue world. Initial contact was made through force demonstration. The narrator continued. 3 human orbital stations were destroyed to establish dominance, resulting in approximately 12,000 human casualties. The next image is made. Miracet's blood run cold instead of surrender signals or pleas for mercy. The humans sent back a single transmission. A recording appears showing a human female with dark hair and cold eyes, wearing some kind of military uniform. "You have attacked our home and killed our people," the woman said, her voice completely calm despite the destruction happening around her. "We do not know who you are or why you have come, but we are going to find out, and then we are going to make sure you never threaten anyone ever again." The Kreth commander had laughed at this message. According to the records, he had ordered his fleet to begin landing troops on the major population centers, expecting the primitive humans to fall within days. What happened next was documented in terrifying detail. Day 1. The narrator reported. Human forces engaged Kreth ground troops using projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Kreth suffer unexpected casualties, but maintain control of landing zones. Day 3. Humans capture intact Kreth shuttle and begin disassembling its technology. Day 7. Human scientists successfully reverse engineer Kreth energy weapons and begin mass production. Day 12. Human forces deploy captured Kreth technology against invasion fleet, destroying 17 warships in orbit. Day 18. Humans launch captured Kreth vessels with human crews, attacking supply lines. Day 25. Human fleet, now numbering 47 converted vessels, breaks. Kreth blockade. Day 31. Humans develop faster-than-light capability using stolen Kreth drive cores. Day 36. Human armada arrives at Kreth Dominion border colonies. Miracet paused the recording, her hand shaking so badly she could barely control the interface in just over a month. The humans had gone from a species with no interstellar capability to a force that could threaten an established galactic power, but the truly horrifying part was still to come. Press play and watch the final days of the Kreth Dominion unfold. Day 38 through day 42. Human forces systematically destroy all Kreth military installations in 17 star systems. No prisoners taken, no surrender accepted. Day 43. Human delegation contacts Kreth High Command, demands unconditional surrender and the location of all Kreth populations. Day 44. Kreth High Command refuses surrender, threatens retaliation against Earth. The recording showed the human response to this threat. It was a single word, spoken by the same dark-haired woman from the first transmission. Okay. Day 45 through day 47. Human forces locate and destroy all remaining Kreth military assets. Day 48 through day 51. Human forces systematically eliminate all Kreth colonial populations. Day 52. Human forces arrive at Kreth homeworld. The final images were ones that would haunt Miracet for the rest of her life. The Kreth homeworld burned from orbit, its cities reduced to ash, its oceans boiled away, its surface scarred by weapons that the galaxy had never seen before, and floating above the devastation, human ships sat in perfect formation, silent and patient, waiting to ensure that nothing survived. Day 53. The Kreth Dominion is officially declared extinct. No survivors have ever been found. The humans returned to their space and made no further contact with galactic civilization for 7 years. The recording ended and was replaced by a document bearing the seals of all 47 Council species. The Terra exclusion protocols. Miracet read aloud, her voice barely a whisper, in recognition of the threat posed by human psychology and military capability. The Galactic Council hereby establishes the following agreements. First, the species known as humans shall be granted sovereign control over the entirety of the Outer Arm, approximately 30,000 star systems, in exchange for their agreement to remain separate from galactic affairs. Second, no Council species shall make contact with, trade with, or travel through human space without explicit human permission. Third, under no circumstances shall humans be informed of galactic conflicts or invited to participate in any military action. Fourth, any violation of these protocols shall be considered an act of war against all Council species. These protocols are established not to punish humanity, but to protect the galaxy from the consequences of their involvement. Miracet closed the files and sat in the darkness for a long time, thinking about what she had learned. The Vorax were coming with 40,000 ships and the fury of an empire that wanted to conquer everything, but somewhere beyond the borders of known space, there was a species that had wiped out an entire civilization in less than 2 months simply because they had been attacked. Miracet understood now why the Council was so afraid, because if the Vorax somehow drew the attention of Terra, it would not be a war, it would be an extinction, and there would be nothing anyone could do to stop it. 3 days had passed since the Vorax ultimatum, and the galaxy was dying. High Arbiter Yeln stood at the center of the Council chamber, watching the tactical display as another cluster of friendly icons disappeared from the map. The Coalition fleet had engaged the Vorax Armada near the Nexus Ring, a strategic position that controlled access to the core systems, 11,000 ships. Against 40,000, the result had been exactly what everyone feared. We have lost contact with the 7th Battle Group, reported Admiral Koss, his voice hollow with shock. That brings our total losses to approximately 6,000 vessels. Casualties are estimated at 14 billion souls across all species. The number hung in the air like a death sentence, too large for most minds to truly comprehend. 14 billion people gone in 3 days of fighting, and the Vorax had barely slowed down. Our remaining forces are retreating to the inner systems, the Admiral continued. But I must be honest with the Council. We cannot stop them. At current rates of advance, the Vorax will reach a core prime within 4 days. Yelm felt every one of her 600 years pressing down on her shoulders as she faced the assembled delegates. Some were crying. Others were praying to gods that seemed very far away. Few had already left to be with their families for whatever time remained. We must consider our options, she said, forcing her voice to remain steady. The floor is open for proposals. The capitulators spoke first. Led by Senator Drex of the Volani Confederacy, we must surrender, he declared, his jelly-like body quivering with fear. The Vorax want territory and servants, not extinction. If we submit now, at least some of us will survive. Survival as slaves, shouted General Veth of the Kormathi Empire, slamming his armored fist against his console. My people would rather die fighting than live on our knees. Easy words from someone whose homeworld is not in the Vorax path. Senator Drex shot back. The Kormathi have time to prepare. My people will be consumed in days. Arguments erupted across the chamber as species turned against each other. Old alliances crumbling under the weight of Terion let them shout for several minutes before raising her staff for silence. There is another option, a quiet voice said from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to look at Elder Miracet, who had risen from her seat with an expression of grim determination on her face, we could contact Terra," she said. The silence that followed was deafening. Yil felt her heart clench with a mixture of hope and horror. "The exclusion protocols," she began, "are meaningless if we are all dead." Miraset interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "I have read the files. High Arbiter, I know what the humans did to the Kreth, but I also know that the Kreth attacked first, and that the humans have honored our agreement for 2 centuries. Perhaps they can show restraint. Perhaps they can simply defeat the Virax without destroying them completely." General Veth laughed bitterly at this suggestion. "You read the files and still believe humans are capable of restraint?" he asked. "I was young when the Kreth War ended, but I remember the images. The Kreth homeworld looked like a dead moon when the humans were finished. They did not just kill the soldiers. They killed everyone. Civilians, children, the elderly. Even the animals that the Kreth kept as pets. That is not war. That is extermination. What choice do we have?" Miraset demanded. "Die at the hands of the Virax, or take a chance that humans have changed." Yeln raised her hand for silence once more. "I have met humans," she said quietly. And the entire chamber leaned forward to hear her words. 60 years ago, a pirate clan kidnapped passengers from a transport ship near the exclusion border. 3 of those passengers were human scientists studying a nebula. The pirates did not know what they had captured, and they demanded ransom from the council. Before we could even respond, a human vessel arrived at the pirate stronghold. Yeln's eyes grew distant as she remembered. It was not a warship, just a small diplomatic courier. But the pirates had hidden in an asteroid field and had thousands of fighters at their command. The human ship did not negotiate, did not threaten, did not even announce itself. It simply began working through the asteroid field, methodically, silently, destroying every pirate vessel it encountered. The battle, if you could call it that, lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the asteroid field was dust, and the human hostages were safely aboard the courier, drinking some kind of hot brown beverage like nothing had happened. "I watched the recordings," Yang continued. "The humans did not show anger or hatred or even satisfaction. They were simply solving a problem, efficiently and completely. That is what terrifies me most about them. They do not fight with emotion. They fight with mathematics." The chamber was silent as everyone absorbed this story. Then, a communication alert began flashing on the main display. "High Arbiter," a technician called out nervously. "We are receiving a transmission from the exclusion border. It appears to be from a Terran monitoring station." Yeln felt the blood drain from her face as she authorized the message. A simple text appeared on the screen, written in the clean, precise style that humans preferred. "We have detected elevated weapon signatures in your sectors. Do you require assistance?" The question seemed almost innocent, like a neighbor asking if everything was all right. But Yeln knew that behind those words was a force capable of destroying everything the Virax had built in a matter of weeks. "We must vote," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do we respond yes, do we respond no, or do we remain silent?" Before anyone could answer, another alert sounded. "High Arbiter." The technician shouted, panic in his voice. "The Virax have attacked a refugee convoy in the sanctuary corridor. They are broadcasting the destruction across all channels." The tactical display updated to show the massacre in progress. Hundreds of civilian ships being torn apart by Virax bioships, and then Yelm saw something that made her heart stop among the debris. Spinning slowly in the void was a vessel marked with Terran identification code S, a human research ship that had been observing a nearby nebula, a ship carrying 18 human citizens who were now certainly dead. "Oh no," Miraset breathed. Understanding immediately what this meant, the council no longer needed to make a choice. The Virax had made it for them, somewhere beyond the exclusion border. Terra was watching, and Terra had just lost 18 of its children. The ship that arrived at Accord Prime was not what anyone expected when the sensors first detected the approaching vessel. Admiral Koss assumed it was an error in the equipment. The reading suggested an object the size of a small moon, moving through space at speeds that should have been impossible, but it was no error. The TCS consequence emerged from faster-than-light travel like a giant waking from sleep, its massive form blocking out the stars behind it. Every ship in the defensive perimeter immediately powered up weapons and raised shields. But High Arbiter Yelm ordered them to stand down before anyone could fire. "That is a diplomatic courier," she announced, her voice carrying a strange mixture of relief and dread. "A diplomatic courier?" General Veth repeated in disbelief. "It is larger than our biggest battle station." "I told you," Yelm replied quietly. "Humans have a different sense of scale." The consequence requested permission to dock at the main council station, and within an hour, a shuttle had delivered. A single human representative to the council chamber captain, Elena Vance, walked into the room with the easy confidence of someone who had never known true fear. She was shorter than most of the alien delegates had expected, with brown hair pulled back from a face that seemed almost gentle. Her eyes were a warm shade of green, and when she smiled, there was genuine kindness in her expression, but every being in that chamber felt a chill run through them as she approached the central platform. This was a human, one of the creatures who had erased an entire species from existence. "Hi, Arbiter Yelm," Vance said, her voice pleasant and calm. "Thank you for receiving me on such short notice. I apologize for any alarm our arrival may have caused. We are here for 2 reasons. First, we wish to recover the remains of our citizens who were killed in the recent attack on the refugee convoy. Second, we intend to address the situation with the Varax hegemony." Yelm struggled to find her voice. "Captain Vance, we appreciate your willingness to assist, but we must discuss the parameters of any intervention. The Council has concerns about the scope of potential actions." "I understand," Vance interrupted gently. "You are worried that we will do to the Varax what we did to the Kreth." The blunt acknowledgement sent murmurs rippling through the chamber. Vance continued without waiting for a response. "Please be assured that we have no intention of exceeding necessary force. We are only sending 1 fleet group to handle this matter. That is restraint. By our standards, we ask only that you keep your vessels clear of Varax space for the next 13 days. After that, the situation should be resolved." Elder Miraset stepped forward, unable to contain her questions any longer. "1 fleet group against 40,000 Varax warships?" she asked. "How many vessels is that?" 200, Vance answered simply. The chamber erupted into confused shouting. 200 ships against 40,000? General Veth demanded. "That is not a battle. That is suicide." Vance turned to look at him, and for just a moment, something flickered behind her kind eyes. Something old and cold and patient. "General, I appreciate your concern," she said, "but I assure you, 200 Terran vessels will be more than sufficient. The Varax do not know what they are facing. By the time they understand, it will be over." 3 days later, the Terran fleet arrived at the Nexus Ring where the Varax armada had gathered. Archon Thelvex received the sensor reports with amusement rather than concern. 200 ships? He clicked his mandibles and what passed for laughter among his species. "The Council has sent insects to fight the hegemony. All ships. Advance and destroy them. Let this be a lesson to any who would challenge our might." His advisors tried to warn him. They had obtained classified files about the Kreth War through their intelligence networks, and they begged him to reconsider. The Levex responded by executing them for cowardice and ordering his fleet forward, the 40,000 bioships. of the Varax hegemony moved toward the tiny human force, like a wave of darkness, their weapons charging, their crews eager for easy victory. And then the human ships began to move. There was something wrong about them, something that made even the bravest Varax warriors feel a primal fear they could not explain. The human vessels did not emit radiation from their drives. They did not register on targeting sensors until they were already firing. They moved in perfect coordination, 200 ships acting as a single organism, anticipating every Varax maneuver before it happened. The first wave of Varax ships simply vanished, torn apart by weapons that left no debris, no wreckage, nothing but empty space where thousands of warriors had been moments before. Archon Thelvex ordered more ships forward, then more, then committed his entire fleet to the assault. It made no difference. The Battle of Nexus Ring lasted 4 hours for 200 human ships to systematically dismantle an armada of 40,000 vessels. Not a single human ship was destroyed. Not a single human life was lost. When it was over, the consequence broadcast a message on all frequencies, its words reaching every corner of Varax space. Archon Thelvex, Captain Vance's voice announced. Still calm, still pleasant, still terrifyingly polite. You have 12 hours to present yourself for justice. If you do not surrender in that time, we will come to collect you personally. This is not a threat. It is a schedule. Thelvex, watching from his command ship at the rear of the now non-existent fleet, made a decision born of pure terror. He ordered his personal vessel to flee, engaging its fastest drives and heading for a secret base on the far edge of hegemony space. He pushed his ship to its limits, traveling for 11 hours through uncharted routes that only he knew. When he finally arrived at his hidden refuge, exhausted but believing himself safe, he found a human shuttle waiting for him in orbit. Captain Elena Vance stood at the airlock as his ship docked, that same gentle smile on her face. Archon Thelvex, she said warmly. Thank you for coming. You have saved us considerable travel time. We calculated your most likely escape routes and positioned assets accordingly. Now then, shall we discuss the terms of your unconditional surrender? Thelvex looked into her kind green eyes and finally understood what the Council had been trying to tell everyone. Humans were not angry humans, were not cruel humans, were simply very good at solving problems, and right now, he was the problem. I surrender, he whispered, his voice broken. Excellent choice, Vance replied, and her smile never wavered. We have so much to discuss about the future of your people. Across the galaxy, beings watched the news reports in stunned silence. The Varax hegemony, the terror that had seemed unstoppable just days ago, had been brought to its knees in less than a week, and everyone was asking the same question. What would the humans do now? The galaxy held its breath and waited for the extinction to begin. Every species in the Council remembered what humans had done to the Kreth 2 centuries ago. They remembered the burned worlds, the empty cities, the total silence where a thriving civilization had once existed, and now the Varax had done the unthinkable. They had killed human citizens. Surely the response would be the same. Surely the Varax would be erased from existence, just as the Kreth had been. High Arbiter Yelm spent sleepless nights preparing refugee corridors for Varax civilians, knowing in her heart that the effort was probably pointless. How do you evacuate hundreds of billions of people from dozens of worlds? How do you save anyone when the humans decided to use their terrible mathematics against an entire species? On the 7th day after the Battle of Nexus Ring, a communication request came through from the TCS. Consequencile accepted it with trembling hands, expecting to see footage of burning Varax cities. Instead, she saw Captain Elena Vance standing in what appeared to be a conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing logistics data and population centers. High Arbiter, Vance said. And her voice carried something unexpected, uncertainty. We need your help. Young was so shocked that she nearly dropped her ceremonial staff. You need our help? She repeated, certain she had misheard. Yes, Vance confirmed. And for the first time since they had met, the human captain seemed almost vulnerable. We have neutralized the Varak's military capability, and we had their leadership in custody. The immediate threat has been eliminated. But now we face a different challenge. She gestured at the displays behind her. There are 400 billion Varak civilians across their former territory. They need food, medical care, governance. And purpose. We are good at ending wars, High Arbiter. We are still learning how to build what comes after. That is why we stayed away all these years. That is why we asked you to never involve us in your affairs. Young felt something shift inside her. A change in understanding that she had never expected to experience. You were not isolating yourselves to protect the galaxy from your power, she said slowly. You were protecting yourselves from becoming something you did not want to be. Vance nodded. And there was pain in her eyes now, ancient and deep. When we destroyed the Kreth, we told ourselves it was necessary, she admitted. We told ourselves that they had attacked us first, that they would never stop coming unless we ended them completely. And maybe that was true. But afterward, when we looked at what we had done, when we counted the dead and saw the empty worlds, we realized something terrible about ourselves. We were capable of anything. There is no line we cannot cross. No act too extreme, no cost too high if we decide it is required. That terrified us more than any enemy ever could. She paused, gathering her thoughts. For 200 years, we have been fighting a different war, not against other species, but against our own nature. We built our society around restraint, around asking if we should do something rather than simply doing it because we could. The exclusion protocols were our idea. High Arbiter, we asked to be separated from the galaxy because we did not trust ourselves to participate without becoming monsters. Young thought about all the fear, all the panic, all the desperate planning that had consumed the council since the crisis began. They had spent so much time being afraid of humans that they had never stopped to consider. What humans might be afraid of? Why are you telling me this now? She asked. Because we need your help to break the cycle, Vance answered. We could occupy Varak's space ourselves, but that path leads nowhere good. Military occupation. Resistance, more violence, more death. Instead, we want the Council to oversee the reconstruction. You have experience in diplomacy, in governance, in bringing different species together. We can provide security and resources. But you must provide the wisdom we lack. We want to prove that we can end a war without ending a people. We want to prove it to the galaxy. But mostly, we want to prove it to ourselves. 3 months later, the Varak's provisional government was established under council supervision. Former Archon Thelvex and his commanders stood trial for war crimes, judged by a court that included representatives from every species they had wronged. The sentence was imprisonment, not execution, a decision that shocked the galaxy almost as much as the human victory. Had human peacekeepers walked the streets of Varak cities, helping to distribute food, repair infrastructure, and establish schools. They did not act as conquerors, but as helpers. Quiet and patient and unfailingly polite Elder Miraset visited one of these cities as part of a council oversight mission. Still not quite believing what she was seeing, she found a human soldier named David sitting on a broken wall, sharing his lunch with a group of Varak's children who had gathered around him with curious eyes. One of the children, a small female with iridescent shells on her back, tugged at David's sleeve. "Why did you not destroy us?" she asked in broken common. "You could have. Everyone says so. Why did you not make us gone like the Kreth?" David looked at her for a long moment. then knelt down so they were at the same height. Because someone once taught us that the hardest war to win is against what you could become, he said gently. We are still fighting that war every day. Your people made a mistake. A terrible mistake, but mistakes can be forgiven. Extinction cannot be undone. We chose to be better than what we could have been. Miracet felt tears forming in her eyes as she watched the children absorb these words. High above the planet, the TCS Consequence prepared to depart for Terran space. Its mission complete on its hull. Barely visible against the dark metal was the ship's motto. Written in the human language called English, we remember what we almost were, as the massive vessel disappeared into the void between stars. High Arbiter Yelm stood in the council chamber and looked at the new galactic map. The exclusion zone was gone, replaced by something called the Terra Partnership Corridor, a region where human and council space met and mingled. New agreement had been signed, one that did not hide humans away, but invited them to participate in galactic affairs as partners rather. Then as a last resort, they would still be the ones called when all other options failed, but now the council would serve as their conscience, their reminder, their connection to something larger than mathematics and efficiency. Perhaps this is how it should have been from the beginning, Elder Miracet said. Standing beside Hiriel shook her head slowly. They were not ready before, and neither were we. Growth takes time, even for species as capable as humans. The important thing is that we are ready now. She turned away from the map and faced the assembled delegates. Beings from every corner of the galaxy who had learned that their greatest fear could also become their greatest hope. The council will come to order, she announced. We have much work to do, and for the first time in centuries, the future seemed bright instead of terrifying. Not because the darkness had disappeared, but because they finally had allies who knew how to carry light into the deepest shadows, even if those allies had to fight themselves every step of the way.